Part 1. The Hunters. The Vraxian pirates were the stuff of nightmares throughout the Orion arm of the galaxy. Their ship, the Dreadclaw, cut through the darkness of space like a phantom predator, leaving only empty vessels and broken distress, beacons in its wake. Captain Knox stood on the bridge, his crystalline body catching the light of distant stars as he surveyed the endless void before him. The Vraxians had evolved on a harsh world where only the strongest survived, their bodies developing natural armor that could deflect most weapons. This biological advantage had served them well as they expanded their piracy operations across 3 sectors of space. "Captain, we've detected a vessel at the edge of the Chorus Nebula," reported Officer Tull, her fingers dancing across the navigation console. "Scans indicate it's a human freighter, the dauntless minimal crew signature, carrying medical supplies and what appears to be processed minerals." Knox's mouth parts clicked together in what passed for a smile among his kind. Humans. They were relatively new to interstellar travel, having only achieved faster-than-light capabilities within the last century. Their ships were often poorly defended, their crews untested in the harsh realities of deep space. "Show me," he commanded. The view screen flickered to life, displaying a bulky transport vessel. Its hull bore the scars of micrometeorite impacts and solar radiation. A working ship, not a military vessel. Perfect prey. "Life signs?" Knox asked, already imagining the valuable cargo they would soon claim. "Detecting only 6 human biosignatures," replied Tull, "consistent with a minimal crew for a vessel of that class. Their shields are at standard commercial strength." Around the bridge, the 12 members of Knox's command crew buzzed with anticipation. The Vraxians had raided vessels belonging to 12 different spacefaring species over the last 30 years. Not once had they failed. Not once had they retreated. Their reputation had grown to the point where some ships simply surrendered upon identifying the Dreadclaw's approach. "Odd," muttered Yun, the tactical officer. "The freighter has altered course slightly. They might have detected us." Knox dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. "It doesn't matter. Humans lack the weapons to harm our hull, and their reflexes are too slow to outmaneuver us. They are prey, nothing more." The truth was, Knox and his crew had never encountered humans in combat before. They had heard stories, of course, rumors of human unpredictability and strange endurance, but Knox put little stock in such tales. All species claimed some special quality when facing defeat. The Bendari boasted of their tactical minds until Knox's crew had boarded their science vessel. The Corellians had bragged about their technological superiority until the Dreadclaw had disabled their engines with a single well-placed shot. "Bring us alongside," Knox ordered. "Standard approach. Deploy the magnetic hooks once we're in range." The great pirate vessel surged forward, its engines glowing a menacing red against the blackness of space. On the view screen, the human freighter grew larger, its boxy design lacking the aesthetic considerations of more established spacefaring races. "They're hailing us," said Tull, sounding almost surprised. "Ignore it," Knox replied. "Prepare the boarding. Party, I want 20 of our best, full combat gear." In the armory, Vraxian pirates donned their sleek boarding armor, more for environmental protection than defense given their natural crystalline exoskeletons. They checked their plasma cutters and neural disruptors, weapons designed to subdue, without killing. Dead crews couldn't reveal cargo access codes or hidden valuables. "Remember," Knox's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, "we want the cargo intact and the humans alive for questioning. Minimal damage to ship systems." Back on the bridge, Knox watched as the magnetic grapples extended from the Dreadclaw's hull, seeking purchase on the human vessel. The freighter made no evasive maneuvers, continuing its steady course as if resigned to its fate. "Strange," Yun noted. "No defensive measures at all, not even emergency acceleration." For the briefest moment, something like unease flickered through Knox's consciousness, a predator's instinct warning of something not quite right. But he dismissed it. Humans were known for their unpredictable behavior, but also for their fragility. Their soft bodies couldn't withstand the vacuum of space, or the strength of a Vraxian's grip. "They know resistance is pointless," Knox declared. "Even humans must understand when they're outmatched." The magnetic hooks made contact with the Dauntless's hull with a dull thud that reverberated through both vessels. The distance between the ships closed until they were nearly touching, the Dreadclaw's boarding tube extending like a proboscis toward the human freighter's airlock. "Boarding party in position," came the report from the team leader. "Ready to breach on your command." Nock rose from his command chair, his crystalline form towering over his bridge crew. "Begin the raid. I expect control of their vessel within 15 minutes. As the boarding tube sealed against the human ship's hull, none of the Vraxians noticed the slight adjustments in the Dauntless's position, nor the nearly imperceptible reinforcement of its shields. None of them recognized the subtle military design elements disguised beneath the freighter's civilian appearance. And none of them, not even Captain Nock with all his years of successful piracy, suspected they were about to become prey themselves. Part 2. First Contact. The airlock hissed open as the Vraxian boarding party cut through the final security measures of the Dauntless. 20 pirates, their crystalline bodies gleaming under the emergency lights of the human vessel, moved into the cargo hold with practiced efficiency. Their leader, Kiv, signaled for silence as they spread out in standard formation. "Too quiet," Kiv muttered, the translator at his throat converting his clicking language into standard galactic common. "Where are the alarms?" The cargo bay was dimly lit and surprisingly orderly. Containers were stacked in neat rows, each bearing medical insignias and shipping codes. The air was cool and slightly thinner than Vraxians preferred, but nothing their bodies couldn't handle for a boarding operation. "Life signs?" Kiv asked one of his scouts who carried a bioscanner. "Still reading 6 humans, but they're scattered throughout the ship," the scout replied, tapping at the device with a crystalline finger. "Most appear to be near the bridge and engine sections." Kiv nodded. It made sense. The humans would be protecting their command center and propulsion systems, standard procedure for most species when boarded. He divided his team, sending 8 pirates toward the bridge, 6 toward the engines, and keeping the rest with him to secure the cargo. "Remember Captain Nock's orders," Kiv reminded them. "We want the humans alive and the ship systems intact." As the team separated and moved deeper into the ship, something felt off to Kiv. The corridors were too well maintained for a simple freighter. The floor plating showed signs of recent replacement, and the wall panels appeared to be reinforced beyond commercial specifications. "Check these cargo containers," he ordered 2 of his pirates. "I want to know exactly what we're stealing." While they worked on opening one of the sealed medical crates, Kiv accessed a ship terminal, his claws clicking against the human-designed interface. The ship's manifest appeared on screen, displaying its official designation and cargo inventory. "The Dauntless," Kiv read aloud. "Formerly UNDF 5583. He paused, his compound eyes narrowing. "UNDF? United Nations Defense Force," supplied one of his more knowledgeable pirates. "It's a human military designation." A chill ran through Kiv's crystalline form. This was a military transport? "Decommissioned 4 years ago, according to these records," the pirate confirmed, peering at the screen. "Repurposed for civilian use after something called the Proxima Centauri conflict." In their corner of the galaxy, the Vraxians had heard only vague reports of human conflicts. Their species had assumed these were minor skirmishes between human factions, nothing that would produce vessels of concern. Now Kiv wasn't so sure. "Captain," came a voice over the comm. "We've reached the engine room. Something's not right." "Explain," Kiv demanded. "These engines, they're not standard commercial drives. They've been modified. Military-grade thrust chambers disguised as civilian models. And there's something else. Emergency bulkheads much thicker than regulation." Before Kiv could process this information, the bridge team checked in. "Bridge appears unmanned, sir. Automated systems only," but there was hesitation in the pirate's voice. "There are signs of recent activity, and these control stations, they're not what they seem." Kiv made a quick decision. "Fall back to the cargo bay, all teams now. But Captain Nock expects—" "Now!" Kiv insisted, suddenly feeling exposed in the too quiet corridors. As he turned to rejoin his team by the cargo containers, something caught his eye. A small camera mounted in a corner, its lens tracking his movement. The realization hit him like a plasma burst. They were being watched. Meanwhile, the two pirates had managed to open one of the medical containers. Instead of the expected pharmaceuticals, they found rows of sleek, compact equipment they didn't recognize. "What is this?" one asked, lifting a device. "Don't touch anything else," Kiv ordered, moving quickly toward the airlock. "We're being—" He never finished the sentence. Throughout the ship, hidden panels suddenly slid open in the walls, floors, and ceilings. The ship's lighting shifted from emergency red to full brightness, momentarily dazzling the pirates' sensitive compound eyes. From one of these hidden compartments near the cargo bay ceiling, a human face appeared. A woman with calm, calculating eyes. She wore no expression as she observed the startled pirates, then disappeared back into the compartment without a word. "We need to leave," Kiv said, his voice urgent as he activated his comm unit. "Captain Nock, the ship is compromised." "This is a trap," Static answered him. Communications were being jammed. Throughout the vessel, the Vraxian teams reported the same phenomenon: hidden compartments, glimpses of humans where the scanners had shown no life signs, and most disturbingly, evidence that the ship was far more than it appeared. The bridge team discovered weapon lockers disguised as supply cabinets. The engine room team found manual overrides for ship systems that didn't appear on any standard freighter schematic. And everywhere, there were those hidden passages, a network running through the walls of the entire vessel. "Back to the boarding." "Tube," Kiv ordered, abandoning the original mission. Something in his predator's instinct was screaming danger. "All teams converge on the airlock. We're leaving." But as the scattered pirates attempted to make their way back to the cargo bay, ship bulkheads began closing, separating them into smaller groups. Not an emergency procedure, this was deliberate. "They're isolating us," reported the bridge team leader, his voice tight with growing concern. "Cutting us off from each other." In the cargo bay, Kiv and his remaining pirates reached the airlock, only to find it sealed. The boarding tube retracted from the Vraxian side. Through the small viewport, Kiv could see the Dreadclaw still attached by its magnetic grapples, but the boarding tube had been severed. "Captain Nack." Kiv tried again on all frequencies. "We need extraction immediately." This time, a response came through, but not from Captain Nack. A human voice, female and unnervingly calm, spoke over the ship's communication system. "Vraxian boarding party," the voice announced. "This is Captain Jin of the Dauntless. You have exactly 1 minute to surrender your weapons before we initiate Protocol Hornet's Nest. I suggest you comply." Kiv looked at his fellow pirates, their crystalline forms reflecting the now bright lights of the cargo bay. For the first time in his career as a space pirate, he felt something unfamiliar settle in his gut. The dawning realization that they had made a terrible mistake. They were not the hunters here. Part 3. The Trap Springs. 1 minute until protocol. Hornet's Nest. Captain Jin's voice echoed throughout the Dauntless, her tone eerily matter-of-fact. Kiv clutched his weapon tighter, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the harsh lights of the cargo bay. The 6 pirates with him formed a defensive circle, backs to each other, weapons pointed outward. Through his comm unit, he could hear the scattered reports from his separated teams, 8 near the bridge, 6 by the engines, all cut off from escape. "We do not surrender," Kiv declared, his translator converting his clicks and hisses into the human language. "We are Vraxians. We have never been defeated." There was no response from Captain Jin. Instead, a subtle change began throughout the ship. The lighting dimmed slightly, taking on a warmer hue. More noticeably, the pirates felt a creeping heaviness in their limbs. "Something's changing," growled one of Kiv's team. "The gravity, artificial gravity increasing by 20%, announced the ship's computer in a pleasant, automated voice. "Oxygen levels increasing to Earth standard plus 5%, temperature adjusting to 23 degrees Celsius. Kiv felt the pressure immediately. Vraxians evolved on a world with lower gravity than Earth. The increased pull made their movements sluggish, their reactions slower. The extra oxygen made their breathing slightly labored, not dangerous but disorienting. They're changing the environment, Kiv realized aloud, making it optimal for humans and worse for us. From the engine room team, a panicked voice broke through the comm. They're coming out of the walls. They were hiding in the transmission cut off with sounds of struggle and the distinctive crack of Vraxian exoskeleton. Kiv's dread deepened. Status report. Engine team respond. Silence. The bridge team's leader came online next, voice tense. We're seeing movement in the maintenance shafts. The life sign readings were wrong. There are more than 6 humans on this ship, many more. Before Kiv could respond, the hidden panels in the cargo bay slid open simultaneously. From every direction, humans emerged wearing sleek, form-fitting exosuits. Not the bulky armor Kiv had seen in briefings about human military forces, but something more advanced, allowing for full mobility while providing protection. Most disturbing were the weapons they carried, compact rifles with distinctive blue power cells. Kiv recognized them immediately. Pulse guns, specifically designed to shatter crystalline structures. Weapons created to kill Vraxians. This is your final opportunity to surrender, said a human male stepping forward from the others. His exosuit bore officer markings, and unlike the others whose faces were partially covered, his features were fully visible, calm, determined, and utterly unafraid. Who are you? Kiv demanded. This ship is registered as a civilian freighter. The man smiled slightly. Lieutenant Park, United Nations Special Naval Forces. And yes, the Dauntless is registered as a civilian vessel. That's the point. Understanding dawned on Kiv with horrifying clarity. You're bait. Lieutenant Park nodded. For too long, human shipping lanes have suffered from Vraxian raids. You've become predictable, Captain. Your kind always targets medical. Transports always uses the same boarding protocols. Over the comm, Kiv heard more sounds of fighting from the bridge section. His pirates were engaging the humans there, but the sounds were all wrong. There were none of the usual screams of terror that accompanied Vraxian raids. Instead, he heard the methodical professional communications of trained soldiers and the sickening crack of crystalline bodies breaking. Bridge team, fall back, Kiv ordered, but it was too late. Your bridge team is already neutralized, Lieutenant Park informed him. 5 casualties, 3 prisoners. Your engine room team surrendered after we disabled 2 of them. He tilted, his head slightly. Your species isn't accustomed to facing enemies who can actually hurt you, are you? Kiv raised his disruptor. We'll see who gets hurt. The 6 Vraxians fired simultaneously, their neural disruptors designed to overload organic nervous systems. To their shock, the beams scattered harmlessly against the humans' exosuits. Insulated against neural disruption, Lieutenant Park explained, almost apologetically. We've been studying your weapons for years. The humans didn't immediately return fire. Instead, Captain Jin's voice came over the comm once more. Captain Nak of the pirate vessel Dreadclaw, your boarding party has been neutralized. Release your magnetic grapples and withdraw, or we will consider your ship a hostile target. On the bridge of the Dreadclaw, Captain Nak received the transmission with disbelief. The view screen showed the Dauntless still apparently dormant, but the boarding party's life signs were flickering on his monitors. Several had already gone dark. Impossible, he hissed. Arm weapons. Target their engines. Back in the cargo bay, Kiv sensed the shift in the standoff. Our ship will destroy you, he told Lieutenant Park. The Dreadclaw's cannons will tear this freighter apart. For the first time, Lieutenant Park laughed, a sound that chilled Kiv's blood. You really don't understand what's happening, do you? The deck beneath them vibrated slightly as systems throughout the ship hummed to life. Shields at maximum, announced the Dauntless's computer. Weapon systems online. Weapons? Kiv echoed. This is a medical transport. No, corrected Lieutenant Park. This is a military vessel disguised as a medical transport. Those cargo containers aren't full of medicine. They're packed with shield generators, weapon systems, and combat supplies. On cue, the first shots from the Dreadclaw struck the Dauntless. The pirates in the cargo bay braced for explosive decompression, for alarms and chaos. Instead, there was only a slight tremor. Minimal shield degradation. reported the ship's computer. Countermeasures ready. Outside, the Dauntless's hull began to change. Panels slid aside, revealing weapon ports that had been concealed beneath false plating. The entire vessel seemed to transform before the Dreadclaw's sensors, military-grade cannons extending from what had appeared to be cargo loading mechanisms. In the cargo bay, the Vraxian pirates finally understood the depth of the trap they had walked into. Kiv looked at his remaining team, seeing his own fear reflected in their compound eyes. "Now then," Lieutenant Park said, raising his pulse rifle casually. "About that surrender." One of the pirates, driven by desperation, launched, himself at the nearest human. The crystalline pirate moved with surprising speed despite the increased gravity. His natural weapons, razor-sharp claws and a reinforced skull ridge, aimed at the human's throat. The human sidestepped with practiced ease, moving as if the increased gravity meant nothing, and fired a single pulse shot. The blue energy burst struck the pirate mid-leap, sending fracture lines across his exoskeleton. The Vraxian dropped to the deck, his crystalline body cracking further upon impact. "Your biology makes you nearly invulnerable to most species," Lieutenant Park noted calmly, "but we humans have always been good at finding weaknesses. Your crystalline structures have resonance frequencies. Hit them just right." He gestured to the fallen pirate, whose body was now webbed with cracks, "and they shatter like glass." Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out as the humans methodically neutralized the remaining Vraxian resistance. Their movements were precise, coordinated, the actions of soldiers who had trained specifically to fight this enemy. In the cargo bay, Kiv finally lowered his weapon. For the first time in his life as a pirate, he spoke the words he never thought would pass his mouth parts: "We surrender." Lieutenant Park nodded, then spoke into his comm. "Cargo bay secure, all pirate teams neutralized." He paused, listening to a report, then looked at Kiv with something like pity. "Your captain isn't as wise as you are. The Dreadclaw is still attempting to pierce our shields. Outside, the Dauntless's concealed weapons fired in perfect synchronization. The Dreadclaw's shields flared and failed under the precision barrage. The pirate vessel, suddenly vulnerable, attempted to disengage its magnetic grapples. "Too late," Lieutenant Park commented, watching the battle through a holographic display that appeared above his wrist. "We've locked onto their systems, Captain." Jin's voice addressed the captured pirates directly. "Your vessel is now under our control. Your captain has been given one final chance to surrender. I suggest you hope he takes it." Kiv slumped against a cargo container, the increased gravity pulling at his weakened limbs. Around him, his fellow pirates were being secured with specialized restraints designed to immobilize their crystalline joints. "I don't understand," he said finally. "How did you know we would attack this ship? How did you prepare so specifically? For us?" Lieutenant Park crouched down to eye level with the defeated pirate. "Because you're not the first Vraxian pirates we've encountered, just the first ones we've allowed to board." He stood up, signaling his team to take the prisoners away. The others never even saw the humans they were attacking. The last thing Kiv saw before being led from the cargo bay was the holographic display showing the Dreadclaw, once the terror of the space lanes, now dead in space, surrounded by previously hidden human military vessels that had been shadowing the Dauntless all along. The trap had been larger and more elaborate than he could have imagined, and somewhere deep in his crystalline core, Kiv realized that everything the Vraxians thought they knew about humans had been dangerously, fatally wrong. Part 4. The counterattack Captain Nak paced the bridge of the Dreadclaw, his crystalline form catching the red emergency lights as alarms blared around him. What should have been a simple raid had turned into a nightmare. Half his boarding party was either captured or dead, and his ship's primary weapons had barely dented the freighter's unexpected shields. "How?" he hissed, smashing a clawed hand against a console. "How does a medical transport withstand our main cannon?" His tactical officer, Yun, worked frantically at her station. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple weapon signatures activating on the human vessel. They were concealed. I've never seen camouflage technology this advanced." The view screen showed the Dauntless transforming before their eyes. Panels along its hull retracted to reveal military-grade weapon ports. The boxy utilitarian shape that had suggested a simple cargo hauler now bristled with defense systems. "Break free," Knack ordered. "Disengage grapples and prepare for emergency jump." "The magnetic locks aren't responding to our commands," reported the operations officer, panic edging into his voice. "They've overridden our control signals." A communication request flashed on the main screen. After a moment's hesitation, Knack nodded for it to be accepted. The face that appeared wasn't what any of the Vraxians expected. Instead of fear or desperation, Captain Jin's expression showed only professional determination. Her dark eyes assessed, not coolly, as if he were a problem to be solved rather than a feared pirate lord. "Captain Knack," she said, her voice steady. "Your boarding party has been neutralized. Your ship is locked to ours via your own magnetic grapples, which we now control. Your options are limited." Knack's mouth parts clicked in anger. "Release my ship or I'll detonate our reactor. We'll both be destroyed." Captain Jin didn't even blink at the threat. "No, you won't. Vraxians value self-preservation above all else. It's why you prey on weaker vessels." She leaned slightly forward. "But you've made a critical error in judgment today. We are not weak. As if on cue, the Dauntless's weapons fired, not at the Dreadclaw itself, but at its weapon emplacements. Precise surgical strikes that disabled the pirate vessel's offensive capabilities without risking a catastrophic hull breach. "Weapons offline," shouted Yun. "They knew exactly where to hit us." On the screen, Captain Jin continued, "We've been studying Vraxian ship designs for years. We know every weak point, every vulnerability." She gestured to someone off-screen. "Lieutenant Park will now lead a counter-boarding party onto your vessel. I suggest you cooperate. Unlike you, we prefer not to have casualties." The screen went dark, leaving the Vraxian bridge crew staring at each other in disbelief. "Seal all bulkheads," Knack ordered. "Prepare for boarders. All crew to battle stations." The 40 remaining Vraxians on the Dreadclaw moved quickly to defensive positions. They had never faced a boarding action before. They had always been the boarders, never the boarded. The corridors that had seemed spacious and efficient now felt exposed and vulnerable. At the main airlock, 6 Vraxian defenders waited. Weapons ready. The exterior door showed signs of being forced, sparks flying as something cut through from the outside. "Hold position," ordered the security chief. "Remember, our exoskeletons can withstand most weapons. We still have the advantage in close combat." The airlock door exploded inward with unexpected force, knocking 2 defenders off their feet. Through the smoke came not the expected rush of human soldiers, but a series of small spherical objects that rolled across the floor. "Grenades!" shouted one Vraxian. But these weren't explosive devices. The spheres emitted a high-pitched whine that rose in intensity until the Vraxians doubled, over in pain. Their crystalline bodies, so effective at deflecting physical attacks, resonated with the sonic frequency. Microfractures spread across their exoskeletons, weakening them from within. Only then did the humans enter. 8 soldiers in the same sleek exosuits seen on the Dauntless, moving with practiced efficiency. Their weapons fired not projectiles or energy beams, but concentrated sonic pulses that exploited the same frequency vulnerability. The Vraxian defenders, their greatest natural advantage turned against them, fell quickly. 2 tried to retreat deeper into the ship, but the humans were surprisingly fast in the ship's normal gravity, catching them before they could reach the next bulkhead. Throughout the Dreadclaw, similar scenes played out as 3 separate human boarding teams systematically took control of the vessel. They moved differently than any enemy the Vraxians had encountered before, not with the caution of prey species, but with the calculated aggression of apex predators. On the bridge, Captain Knack received increasingly desperate reports from his crew. "Engine room has fallen," came one transmission. "They're using some kind of foam that hardens around our limbs. We can't break free without shattering ourselves." "Barricaded in the mess hall," reported another. "They're flooding the compartment with gas that's crystallizing in our breathing tubes. Can't hold much longer." Knack had never experienced defeat. In 30 years of piracy, his ship had always been the victor, his crew always the ones instilling fear. This reversal defied everything he thought he knew about the natural order of the galaxy. "What are these humans?" he growled as Yoon set up the last defensive position around the bridge entrance. "The records were wrong," she replied, her voice tight with stress. "The intelligence briefings said they were fragile, disorganized, that their only advantage was their numbers." The bridge doors began to glow red as cutting tools worked on them from the outside. "They're not just fighting with technology," observed Yoon, watching the doors slowly give way. "It's how they move, how they coordinate. They're not afraid. They're hunting us." When the doors finally breached, the humans didn't immediately rush in. Instead, a single canister rolled onto the bridge, releasing a dense fog that quickly filled the compartment. The Vraxians fired blindly into the mist, their shots hitting nothing. The first human entered low, firing upward at Yoon's position. The sonic pulse struck her leg, shattering the crystalline joint. She fell with a cry that turned to shock as the human moved with impossible speed to disarm her, a technique that suggested knowledge of Vraxian pressure points and vulnerabilities. 2. More humans entered from different angles using the continuing fog as cover. They didn't speak to each other, yet their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if they shared a hive mind. One by one, the bridge defenders were disabled with precision strikes. Captain Nak, seeing his final defense crumbling, lunged at the nearest human with all his strength. His claws, capable of rending metal, should have torn through the exosuit with ease. Instead, the human sidestepped with startling agility, using Nak's momentum against him. As the Vraxian captain stumbled forward, the human delivered a precise strike with what looked like a simple baton. The impact point on Nak's back was a neurological cluster known to few outside Vraxian medical circles. The pain dropped him instantly, to the deck, his limbs spasming uncontrollably. Looking up from his prone position, Nak found himself staring into the face of Lieutenant Park, who had removed his helmet. The human's expression wasn't triumphant or vengeful, just professionally satisfied, like someone who had completed a difficult but routine task. "Bridge secured," Park reported into his comm unit. "Captain Nak has been neutralized, awaiting further instructions." Captain Jin's voice responded clearly. "Well done, Lieutenant. Secure the prisoners and prepare for Phase 2. As the remaining Vraxians were restrained with the specialized cuffs that immobilized their joints, Nak finally found his voice. "Who are you people?" he demanded, his translator struggling to convey his mixture of rage and fear. Lieutenant Park knelt beside the fallen pirate captain, his eyes level with Nak's compound gaze. "We're humans," he said simply, "and you should have done your research before you decided to hunt us." The lieutenant stood and directed his team to secure the bridge systems. As they worked with practiced efficiency, Nak realized the terrible truth. His crew hadn't been defeated by superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but by something far more dangerous. A species that had observed, adapted, and prepared, specifically to counter every advantage the Vraxians possessed. For the first time in his long career as a feared pirate, Captain Nak understood what it truly meant to be prey. Part 5. A New Understanding. The cargo bay of the Dauntless had been transformed into a temporary holding area. 23 Vraxian pirates sat in specially designed restraints that immobilized their crystalline joints without causing fractures. Medical personnel moved among them, treating the worst injuries with surprising care given the circumstances. Captain Nak, separated from his crew and secured to a reinforced chair, watched Captain Jin as she reviewed data on a holographic display. The human captain was smaller than he had expected, barely reaching the chest height of an average Vraxian, yet she commanded respect from everyone around her with subtle gestures and quiet words. "Why treat our wounded?" Nak finally asked, breaking the silence. "We would not have extended the same courtesy." Jin looked up from her display. "That's one of many differences between us, Captain." She approached, stopping just beyond his reach if he'd been free. "Human history is filled with the mistake of becoming what we fight against. We try to learn from that history." Nak's compound eyes studied her, searching for weakness or deception. He found neither. "You planned this trap well," he admitted reluctantly. "How long have you been hunting us?" We weren't hunting you specifically, Jin replied. Your ship is one of 17 Vraxian pirate vessels that have been raiding shipping lanes in this sector. You're simply the first to take our bait. Lieutenant Park entered the cargo bay, now dressed in a standard uniform rather than combat gear. He handed Jin a datapad, which she reviewed quickly before nodding. Both ships are secure, Park reported. Engineering teams have disabled the Dreadclaw's self-destruct capabilities and restrained its AI from wiping navigational data. Nock's mouth parts clicked in alarm. You cannot access our ship's memory banks. The locations of our bases will soon be known to us, Jin finished for him, along with your supply caches, hideouts, and the identities of those who purchase your stolen goods. For the first time, real fear gripped the Vraxian captain. His ship contained information that could unravel the entire pirate network he'd spent decades building. Hundreds of Vraxians depended on that secrecy for their livelihood and freedom. What do you want? He asked, his translator unable to hide the desperation in his tone. Jin set aside the datapad and pulled up a small stool to sit facing him. What I want is for the attacks on civilian vessels to stop. For medical transports carrying supplies to remote colonies to reach their destinations. For trade ships to travel without escorts. You staged this elaborate trap just to deliver a warning? I couldn't believe it was that simple. No, Jin said, leaning forward slightly. We staged this to change the equation. Vraxians respect strength above all else. Until now, you believed humans were weak. Easy targets because we lack natural armor and don't possess your physical capabilities. She gestured around the cargo bay where human soldiers moved with quiet efficiency, their technology and training having thoroughly defeated what Nock had considered a superior species. Now you know differently, she continued, and you're going to help us send that message to every Vraxian pirate operation in the sector. Lieutenant Park approached with another human Nock hadn't seen before, an older male with silver at his temples and the insignia of intelligence services on his uniform. This is Agent Choi, Jin introduced him. He has a proposal for you. Choi pulled up his own stool, his movements unhurried and deliberate. Captain Nock, your reputation precedes you. 30 years without a defeat is impressive, even if your targets were, let's say, carefully selected. The implied insult stung, but Nock remained silent. We're offering you a choice, Choi continued. Option 1, we turn over you and your crew to the Galactic Council as pirates. Your ships, assets, and bases will be seized. The evidence in your nav computer alone is enough for lifetime imprisonment on Rigel Prime. The mention of Rigel Prime, a notorious prison planet, made several of the nearby Vraxian pirates hiss in fear. And option 2? Nock asked, already knowing he wouldn't like either choice. You work with us, Choi said simply. Provide intelligence on all Vraxian pirate operations, locations, leadership, tactics. In exchange, you and your immediate crew receive immunity and relocation. Nock's crystalline body stiffened. You're asking me to betray my own kind. No, Jin interjected. We're asking you to save them. The Dauntless is just the first of many such operations planned. The next pirates won't receive this offer. To demonstrate her point, Jin activated a larger holographic display showing a fleet of vessels, all disguised as various types of civilian ships, but carrying the same hidden military capabilities as the Dauntless. Operation Hornet's Nest has been approved at the highest levels, she explained. Every major shipping lane will soon have ships like this one. The pirates who attack them won't be having conversations like this one. Nock looked from the display to the humans surrounding him. There was no boasting in their manner, no gloating at their victory. Just the calm confidence of predators who knew exactly what they were doing. Why? He asked finally. Why go to these lengths? Most species would simply increase military patrols or hire mercenaries. Choi smiled slightly. Because that's not how humans solve problems. We study, we adapt, we prepare, and when we fight, we don't just win the battle. We change the conditions that made the battle necessary. For the first time, Nock began to understand what made humans truly dangerous. It wasn't their technology or weapons, or even their tactics. It was their thinking, their ability to approach problems from angles no Vraxian would consider. You have 1 hour to decide, Jin said, rising from her stool. I suggest you use that time to consider what's best for your crew, and for the future of Vraxian-human relations. As the human officers walked away, Nock found himself re-evaluating everything he thought he knew about the galaxy's power structure. The Vraxians had always seen themselves as superior due to their natural advantages, stronger, better protected, more intimidating. They had classified humans as physically weak, technologically unsophisticated newcomers to interstellar travel. How catastrophically wrong they had been. Across the cargo bay, Nock observed his wounded crew receiving treatment. He saw Kiv, his boarding party leader, deep in conversation with a human medic who was explaining the treatment being administered to a badly injured pirate. The Vraxian was listening with what appeared to be genuine interest. After nearly 30 minutes of silent contemplation, Nock called out, "Captain Jin." She returned promptly as if she'd been waiting for his call. "I need to understand something before I give you my answer," Nock said. "Your species. You're not what our intelligence suggested. You're not like any prey species we've encountered." Jin smiled slightly. "That's because we're not a prey species, Captain Nock. Nor are we purely predators. Humans evolved as both." She pulled up an image on her datapad, an ancient human with primitive weapons, hunting animals larger and faster than itself. "Our earliest ancestors were persistence hunters," she explained. "We couldn't outrun our prey, but we could outlast them. We didn't have natural weapons, so we invented them. We lacked strength, so we developed strategy." She swiped to another image. Early humans huddled together, protecting themselves from larger predators. At the same time, we were prey for larger creatures. We learned to detect danger, to hide, to defend our young. We developed cooperation and complex social structures to survive. Nock began to understand. "You carry the instincts of both." Jin nodded. "Predator and prey, hunter and hunted. We're both. We understand pursuing and we understand being pursued. It gives us a perspective your species lacks." The revelation settled over Nock like a cold shadow. The Vraxians had evolved as apex predators on their homeworld, never knowing the fear of being hunted, never developing the instincts of the pursued. It made them formidable in direct confrontation, but predictable in their aggression. Humans, with their dual evolutionary heritage, could think like predators and prey simultaneously. They could hunt like wolves and defend like herd animals. They could be ruthlessly efficient in attack and extraordinarily clever in defense. "I will accept your offer," Nock said finally. "Not just to save myself and my crew, but because I now see what you truly are." He leaned forward as far as his restraints would allow. "You humans are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Not despite your physical limitations, but because of them." Captain Jin didn't smile at her victory. She simply nodded in acknowledgement of a truth both species now understood. "Lieutenant Park will begin the debriefing process," she said, standing to leave. "For what it's worth, Captain Nock, your decision today may well save countless lives, both human and Vraxian." As word of the Dreadclaw's defeat spread throughout pirate networks in the following weeks, a new understanding emerged among the Vraxians. The stories told of humans who could predict their tactics, exploit their weaknesses, and turn their greatest strengths against them. The message rippled across the space lanes. Human vessels were no longer to be considered targets. They were to be avoided at all costs. For the first time in generations, the shipping lanes became safer, as pirates learned what happens when you mistake humankind's generally peaceful nature for weakness, when you fail to recognize that behind their fragile exteriors and diplomatic overtures lies a species that evolved to both hunt and survive being hunted, and has perfected both arts across thousands of years of doing both.